Hey guys, okay, so here's the demo for macaroni and cheese. Go ahead and look at your recipe, which you should have. If you don't have it, I'm gonna read through it. It's 1.5 cups of elbow macaroni, and elbow macaroni is just the small little noodles, okay? You're gonna need 3 tablespoons of flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of dry mustard, a 1/4 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, which looks like this, 1.5 cups of milk, and then 1.5 cups of cheese. I know a lot of you have probably had mac and cheese, maybe like the Easy Mac or Kraft macaroni and cheese, but we are actually making the cheese sauce, and we're going to boil the pasta so it'll be homemade mac and cheese, okay? You're just gonna follow the recipe exactly. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to wash your hands with hot soapy water. Let me do that first, really quickly. And then you want to get your pasta water boiling right away. So you're going to get your small stock pot. If you can't find your small one, your large one will work. But your small stock pot, you're going to fill it half filled with water, and then you're going to put it on your front right burner, which is your power boil burner, and turn it on high. Once that water gets boiling, and not like little teeny bubbles, it should be like big giant bubbles coming up to the top, that's a rapid boil, then you will add your 1.5 cups of pasta. So bring the water to a boil and then add your pasta into the water as it's boiling. Once you add the pasta, you're going to reduce the heat just a little bit because you still want it boiling, but you don't want it to overflow, okay? You're going to cook the pasta for about 8 to 10 minutes, and once your pasta is in the water cooking, then you want to start making the cheese sauce. Don't start making the cheese sauce too early, because then it will start to separate out and the consistency of it gets really yucky. So boil the water. Once it's boiling, add your pasta, and then start making the cheese sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and start making the cheese sauce. And you want to use this pan, your larger skillet. You guys have a couple of them in your kitchen. So anyone, which is fine. The thing with making a cheese sauce is it's all about the consistency and making sure that it's the right consistency. Okay, you want it to be really smooth, but you don't want it to be like watery. So you got to make sure it's all about the consistency. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to melt a 1/4 cup of butter, which is a 1/2 stick, and it's already cut and sliced for you out on the supply table. So let that melt a little bit, and you want your burner on about medium heat, okay? What we're doing here with our cream sauce, which is what a cheese sauce is we're making what's called a roux, and a roux is the base of a sauce, okay? When we make fettuccine alfredo, we will also be making a roux. And a roux is your base. It's butter and it's flour. Sometimes it has olive oil, and it becomes like this thick paste, and you're gonna see that in just 1 minute once my butter melts a little bit. Oh, shoot. Hold on. And the gas is out. Okay, keep going. It's okay. Hold on 1 second. There it is. The butane's out. No problem. But you want to get that butter melting. There we go. Okay, back on track. But get that butter melting. You don't want to burn the butter, so just kind of medium heat, maybe like a 5 or 6, get that melting. You're going to use your wire whisk when you mix all this together, but you have to be really careful because this is metal on metal. You don't want to scratch the bottom of the pan. You just want to gently mix it, but a wire whisk works best when you are making the cream sauce. So get that melted, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our 3 tablespoons of flour, and you're going to start to see it's going to get kind of thick. It's going to get kind of pasty and kind of thick, which is what you want, okay? You want this. This is called your roux, okay, which is your base of your cream sauce, okay? And I'm gently touching the bottom of the pan. I'm not like scratching it, but it is kind of touching, which is fine. But you want to mix in that flour just like this. So now I've got this tasty flour and butter mixture. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my 1.5 cups of milk. And you just slowly add that in. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to mix. And this is like the long part. You just have to keep mixing and mixing. And you can see how I'm still touching the bottom of the pan with my wire whisk, but it's not like scratching really hard. I'm just gently mixing it in. That roux will start to melt together with the butter or the milk. And then what you're gonna get is this kind of a thicker, bubbly cream sauce, okay? This is the exact same thing that we're gonna do when we make fettuccine Alfredo, but we're going to add basil and parsley and that sort of stuff. Today, we're just adding ingredients for the mac and cheese sauce. Okay, so you just kind of stir this, and you probably should have somebody constantly stirring. And remember, you're not gonna start this until after your pasta is already boiling, okay? Once you kind of mix this in, you'll start to see that it's gonna get pretty thick and bubbly, and it'll take about a minute or two. And then once you start to see that thick and bubbly, I don't know if you can see the consistency in the video, but it is starting to thicken up a little bit. It's not too liquidy, it's a little liquidy, okay? But it'll start to bubble. I'm gonna reduce the heat just a little bit. And I'm going to start adding some of my ingredients. So I'm gonna add my 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And remember to measure over something other than your mixing bowl. We're adding ground mustard. Oh, and this isn't open. That's okay. You're gonna use a 1/4 teaspoon of this. And you can have all of these measured out so that all you have to do is just put them right in. Ground mustard. Worcestershire sauce, I'm gonna add a 1/4. Worcestershire sauce gives it a good, kind of a smoky flavor, which is good for mac and cheese. And then the last thing we're gonna add is pepper, okay? And I'm gonna add probably about, I think the recipe says a 1/2 teaspoon. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off because it's getting pretty thick. But this is the thickness that you want. I'm gonna start adding my cheese a little bit at a time. You don't want to add it all at once because you don't want it to clump together. So add a little bit of cheese and then my 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And then you just stir. You're gonna stir this cheese in so that it starts to melt. And you just want to add a little bit at a time. Now the color's gonna change because the cheese is orange, right? So it's gonna give it a little yellowish orangey tint color. And you wanna add about 1.5 cups of cheese. You can go ahead and measure that out. And then you just wanna make sure that you get all this mixed in. And about the time that you're done with your cheese sauce, your macaroni noodles should be done cooking because they take about 8 to 10 minutes. And once those are done, you saw how fast the sauce came together. So don't start it too quick because what will happen is the butter and stuff will start to separate out and you don't want that. So once your noodles are done cooking, you're going to use your colander. Okay, you're gonna put your colander in your sink and then you'll take your boiling water with your noodles. It's gonna be hot. Pour them in there. Okay. And then I pour the noodles back into your stock box. Pretend there were noodles there. And then now you have your noodles that are cooked with no water. Add your cheese sauce right into the stock pot and you're gonna mix it together really well. You can use like a wooden spoon or a wire spatula, but mix that together really well. And then macaroni and cheese is, this recipe is a baked mac and cheese. So once you get to this point, you're going to use one of these two pans. You can use your square one or your small rectangle. Don't use any other pans, but either of these, okay? A little bit of cooking spray, sound effects. And then you pour your mixture into here. It's gonna be your cooked noodles mixed with your sauce, and then this goes into your oven, and it bakes at, what is it? 350 degrees for 15 minutes, okay? If you want, you can also add about maybe like 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese on the top. You can sprinkle it on the top to add a little bit of extra, okay? Please don't take extra cheese from the supply table. Everything will be out on the supply table. Your sub will set that out. Make sure that you measure correctly. Make sure that you bring your water to a complete boil, lots of bubbles, before you add the macaroni. And once that macaroni gets added, it's about 8 to 10 minutes. You don't want it to be crunchy. You want it to be, don't want it to be mushy. So it's just that perfect, perfect cooking time. Okay, and then you mix the two together and in your pan and bake it and then enjoy. Please make sure that you rotate responsibilities. Please make sure that you fill out your planning sheet correctly, and that's just for my Culinary 1 classes. Culinary 2 and 4, you don't have to do the planning sheet. Any questions, ask your sub, ask my student services, and that's it. Have a good day. Thanks.